And I'm very glad that the world is joining in that Liberation Memorial Day. I am pleased to see you all come here. We want for everybody to join in that great event. And remember, because number one thing in preventing anything from happening, we have to remember. Number two, we have to act. And we have to treat each other. Very simple, just with respect, kindness, and consideration, we can make a difference. So I will read the first candle. The candles we have started lighting, I think I began doing that about 23 years ago, because I would just come up with my own little remembrances of who were these people who were murdered. And then we decided to ask other people to join in, so I wouldn't do all of it myself. So the first candle I am going to light, I light this candle for all the people who were used as human guinea pigs in order to advance science, eugenics, and medicine. May we shed a strong light on this dark and hidden chapter of the Holocaust, so we all learn and practice the idea that no human being should ever be used in experiments without informed consent.
I light this candle for the 1.5 million Jewish children murdered by the Nazis. Their only crime was that they were born Jewish. These children never got to go to school, become the scientists, teachers, artists, inventors, and the people they could have become.
I light this candle for all those who were deemed unfit, physically and mentally, and were murdered by the Nazis in their attempt to purify the race. May we all remember that each individual has worth and deserves respect. We should judge people on their actions and the content of their character.
You come up.
I light this candle in the memory of gypsies and homosexuals who were murdered in the Holocaust. No one asked to be a victim. These people, too, had lives and futures that were denied to them by the Nazis. May the lighting of this candle signify everyone's pledge that such an event will never happen again, and may we all make a commitment here today to work together to help free the world from hatred and prejudice.
I light this candle for all the political opponents of Hitler and the Third Reich. They were murdered because they had the strength of their convictions and dared to speak out.
I light this candle to honor the courage of so many innocent people who couldn't just stand by and let it happen. They risked their own lives for people they never knew before, and by doing so, they have saved the spirit of humanity. May we learn to have the courage to stand up for people who are singled out for bullying and harassment because they are different.
I light this candle for all the grandparents who were murdered in the Holocaust, who were unable to pass on their family legacies to their children and grandchildren. These grandparents were deprived of their golden years and their roles in the lives of their families. The grandchildren were deprived of having a grandmother and a grandfather.
I light this candle for all the religious leaders and for those members of the Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics who were murdered because of their beliefs. These religious people dared to speak out against the wrongs that were committed. They died because they believed in the rights of every human being and dared to speak out against Hitler's evil deeds.
I light this candle for all the teachers, rabbis, doctors, scientists, artists, shopkeepers, police officers, bankers, farmers, merchants. All those people who helped keep society flourishing and whose lives were taken because they were Jewish. The potential they had, the contributions they might have made to society, were all taken away because of hatred and prejudice.
I light this candle for all the Jewish families who were murdered during the Holocaust, who were never able again to share their love for each other nor their dreams. The survivors who were left had to pick up the fragments of the memories of a normal life. Children had no parents to hug. Parents had no children to hug and kiss. Yet they were determined that Hitler would not win. They raised loving families.
I light this candle for all of the millions of nameless victims of the Holocaust and other genocides since the Holocaust, such as Bosnia, Somalia, Rwanda, Darfur, etc. These were people just like you and me, women, men, children with names and faces, with hopes and dreams that will never come true. We must work together and say out loud, no more Auschwitzes, no more Bosnias, no more Somalias, no more Rwandas, no more Darfurs, no more hatred, no more prejudice, no more killing.
I light this candle to shed some light on a tragic situation of abused and neglected children throughout this country and the world, just like the children of the Holocaust. They have lost their childhood, their innocence, their ability to trust the world, and have no hope for the future. I am asking you all, never, ever give up on yourselves and your dreams, because there is a future after despair, hope after disaster, and if you work really hard, everything good in life is possible.
So, now begins the lecture? No. Take a picture. I'll take a picture of all of us. Come on.
Should we leave this here?
Yeah, thank you. You have done a very good job. Thank you all.
Give me just 1 second to turn this on.
Come on in, everybody. There are still places left. Yeah. Okay, is that turned on?
I think so.
Welcome to Kendall's Holocaust Museum. This is a unique Saturday. We are observing 74 years to the liberation of Auschwitz and Holocaust Memorial Day. And this is live, transmitted live by, what is it called anyway?
Facebook.
What?
Live streamed on Facebook.
This is live streamed on Facebook. And I hope that we have many, many viewers and listeners throughout the world. My name is Eva Kor. I am a survivor of Auschwitz, a survivor of medical experiment conducted by Dr. Mengele. And now that I am almost 85 years old, I am trying to survive old age. And let me tell you, there's no golden age. I don't know who called it golden age. It's really quite challenging the older I get. My lecture is divided in 3 parts. Part 1, how I survived Auschwitz. Part 2, very important part, the lessons that I have learned from it. And part 3, question and answers. But before I begin, because we have such a variety of people, I am just curious how far some of you have come. Can you, anybody tell me who has come from over an hour far away? Yes, where do you come from?
Delphi.
Where?
It's close to Lafayette, Indiana.
Oh, Lafayette, yeah. Anybody else that came? Yes?
Near Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne, that's a pretty good direction. Yes?
Columbus, Ohio.
What?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. How long did it take you to get here?
4 hours.
4 hours, wow. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Indiana.
Where?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis? Yes?
Seymour, Indiana. Seymour,
Seymour, how far is Seymour from here?
about 2.5 hours.
Really? Wow. Well, thank you all who made the extra effort. We sometimes have as far as Utah, but I think those stayed today there, so they didn't come to this area. Okay, my lecture is divided, as I said, in 3 parts, so I will begin with part number 1. I was born in 1934 in a tiny village in Transylvania, Romania. Transylvania is a region in Romania adjacent to the Hungarian border. World War II started September 1, 1939. By May of 1940, Transylvania was occupied by the Hungarian army and we became part of Hungary. In my village, there were only about 100 families, all Christian, but my family, the Moses family, was Jewish. We were the only Jewish family. In the Moses family, there were 6 people. My father, Alexander Moses, was 44 when we were taken away. My mother, Jaffa, 38. My oldest sister, Edith, 14. My middle sister, Alice, 12. And Miriam and I, twins, we were 10 years old. So the occupation happened in 1940. By May, I said, we were occupied, and with the occupation, everything changed. My father had to go every 2 weeks to the nearby police station. If he didn't, the threat was always that if you don't do what we tell you to do, we are going to arrest you and take you away. Well, they arrested us and took us away anyway, even though we obeyed all their orders. School started in the fall. In that little village, there was a 1-room schoolhouse, about 40 to 44 children from age 6 to age 10. The first book that I ever get in the Hungarian language had a math problem in it. If you have 5 Jews and you kill 3, how many are left? That is the way I went to school. I know that that sounds extreme, but when hatred rules a part of the world, that is not unusual. Everything in our life was surrounded with how to catch and kill Jews. The Hungarian government passed at least 2 laws every year. And the laws were designed to restrict the lives of Jewish people and make it more difficult to function. I will give you an example. 1942, I was 8 years old. The 2 new laws that were passed were Jewish people could not hire anybody who was not Jewish. Well, in our village, there was no one to hire. Second law, that Jewish people could not travel anywhere without a special permit. The reason I remember it, because in 1942, my mother got sick. She was too sick to handle the responsibilities of a very big, old-fashioned farm. So my father wanted to get a permit to travel to the big city to see if he could hire 1 or 2 Jewish ladies. The permit was not granted. But here I am, 8 years old, and I could feel in every ounce of my being that we were in big danger. I said to my father, Daddy, the time has come for us to escape to Romania. The Romanian border was only 1 hour by foot from our house, and the rumor was that life for Jews in Romania was much better than in Hungary, and it turned out to be correct. Most of the Jews in Romania survived, while most of the Jews in Hungary were murdered. My father looked at me and said, "You're just a little kid. You do not understand the big, important issues in our life." Well, I have a theory that children, even as young as 5 years old, are a lot smarter than people think that they are. After 13, I don't know what happens. The hormones kick in and everything goes haywire. And my father kept saying, we have a nice house, we have plenty of food, and then he said, and the Germans won't come to this tiny village to pick up 6 Jews. Well, Daddy, I am very sorry that you were 100% wrong. And I, the 8-year-old kid, was 100% right. I sure wish it was the other way around. March 15, 1944, 2 gendarmes came to our house with guns, gave us 2 hours to pack food and clothing because they were taking us to a regional ghetto, they said. Ghettos at this time popped up in many occupied countries, occupied by the Nazis. And they were not the ghettos that we see in the cities today. These were real prisons, surrounded sometimes by brick walls, but mostly by tall barbed wire fences, and always guarded by guards with guns. Our ghetto was among the smallest. The biggest ghetto was in Warsaw, had 500,000 Jews. But we were a little rural area, so in our ghettos there were 8,500 Jews. It was mostly an open field and they surrounded by tall barbed wire fences. There was only one building, the commandant's headquarters, so we built our tents out of sheets and blankets. We were taken to the ghetto March 15th, so we were there half of March, all of April, and half of May, about 2 months. Springtime, it rained a lot. The ground was often wet. So we talked among ourselves and we said, well, as long as the family is together, we are going to somehow make it. The head of every family, including my father, was taken in for interrogation. Interrogation meant questioning by force. And if you didn't answer the question the way they wanted you to answer it, you got beaten up. So my father was brought back on a stretcher with bleeding whip marks. All his fingernails and toenails were burned. They kept asking him, where did you put all your gold? My father looked at them and said, I am a farmer. I put my money in land. They didn't want to believe him, but it was true. 3 days after my father was brought back, we were told to leave all our belongings behind because they are taking us to a labor camp in Hungary that will have everything we needed. So, we were loaded into a cattle car, just like this one, about 100 people. Once the cattle car was packed, the door slid on this track, and a bar came from behind the door hooked into the handle. Between each 2 cattle cars there was a booth with a guard with a machine gun, and he clearly stated, anybody trying to escape, I am going to shoot. The train moved very fast. As you can see here, in this picture, there is a train in action. and it's marked with the Star of David, the symbol for Jewish people. The train would stop only for one reason, to refuel. So when the train would stop, we would ask our guard by our cattle car for water. We were unbelievably thirsty. I remember my tongue sticking to my mouth. So the guard would say, 5 gold watches. People would pass, my parents and other people, pass the watches through the little windows at the top. And then he would take a bucket of water and throw it through one of the windows. Even though I put my cup over my head, I never got more than a few drops. And I don't think that anybody did better than I did. It was the 3rd night in the cattle car. The train stopped, we asked for water, and the answer came back in German. I was 10 years old. I instantly understood what happened. We have crossed the border into Germany. Our Hungarian guards have been changed to German. That meant that, of course, they lied to us. They were not taking us to Hungary to a labor camp, but they were taking us to Germany to be murdered. Only thing left for us was to pray. And we began to pray. And we prayed for the next 8 hours. When the train stopped again. And we again asked for water. And this time there was no answer in any language. The cattle car doors opened. Thousands of people poured out of the cattle car onto and we have landed on a strip of land known as the selection platform, because people were selected to live or to die. And I will show you another picture here. So our train came in under this building. Once the train left the building, the tracks divided into 3. The space between track 1 and track 2, it's called the selection platform. From its widest point to its widest point, it measures 85 feet long by 35 feet wide. In my opinion, there is no other strip of land anywhere on the face of this earth where so many people were ripped apart from their family forever. So, this camp is known as Birkenau or Auschwitz II. It sits on 450 acres and it was built for 100,000 inmates. I take every year between 100 and 200 people to the camp, and I stand with my guests at the selection platform, and this is a place where I saw my family for the very last time. So the other thing we have here, we improvised a selection platform. Here is a picture of the building that you saw here. The picture, here is the gate under which our train came in. Our train came on track number 1. So as we got off, we were facing the center, and my mother grabbed my twin sister and me by the hand, hoping that as long as she could hold on to us, that she could protect us. This was the craziest and most confusing place I have ever been. Parents were looking for their children, children were crying, Nazis were yelling orders, dogs were barking, everybody was confused. And in my childish curiosity, I wanted to understand where we were, so I physically turned around and looked at the place trying to understand what's going on. And as I looked around, I realized that my father and my two older sisters were not with us. Never saw them again. Holding on to mother for dear life, a Nazi was running in the middle of the selection platform, yelling in German, "Twins, twins." We did not volunteer any information, but he noticed Miriam and me. We looked alike, we were dressed alike, and he demanded to know from my mother if we were twins. And my mother asked, "Is that good?" And the Nazi said yes, and my mother said yes. At that moment, another Nazi came, took my mother to one side, we were pulled to the other direction. I never even got to say goodbye to my mother, because it was only 30 minutes from the time we got off the cattle car, and my whole family was gone. Miriam and I were holding on to one another and trying to figure out what would happen to us. We became part of a group of little girls. In our group, there were 13 sets of female twins between the ages of 2 and 16. And one mother, and the mother's name was Mrs. Changeri. She was my mother's friend, and she had two little girls 3 years younger than we were. Our group was taken from the selection platform to a building for processing. From the day that I arrived in Auschwitz to the day that I was liberated, no one ever explained to us anything. Go here, go there. So whatever I am telling you comes from my own experience, from rumors and what I have learned about Auschwitz after the war. In the processing center, our clothes were immediately removed, and we sat naked for most of the day without knowing what would happen. It was late in the afternoon when our processing began. We used to have, as little girls, we used to have braids. They were cut short. Our dresses were taken away, so we sat naked. Late in the afternoon, when the processing began, our dresses were returned with a huge oil-painted red cross in the back, and they lined us up for registration. So 13 sets of twins, that meant 26 little girls. I was number 25, Miriam was number 26. So I watched 24 little girls being tattooed. I decided that when my turn came, I would not cooperate, that I would give them as much trouble as a 10-year-old could. 4 people restrained me, 2 Nazis and 2 women prisoners, and they heated a long needle, they heated it over the flame of a lamp. When the needle got hot, they dipped it into ink, and then they burned into my left arm, dot by dot, the capital letter A, dash, 7063. Miriam became capital A, dash, 7064. Auschwitz was the only Nazi camp that I know about that tattooed its inmates. Why? I don't know. But if you're interested in Auschwitz tattoos, I suggest that you Google Auschwitz tattoos, and you will find quite a collection. Some of the numbers will be big, bold, and very clear, and others will be worse than mine. So in trying to understand it, I think the tattoos resulted from the talent that these inmates were given the assignments to become the tattoo artist, and from the cooperation or lack of cooperation of the victims. Years later, when I compared notes with Miriam, and she said that not only did I create a general confusion, but I beat the Nazi holding my arm. I am sure I was capable of doing it, but I don't remember. I was raised to be a nice girl, And as we know, nice girls and nice boys don't bite. So I must have blocked it out of my mind. Once we were processed, we were taken from the processing center throughout the camp. By the way, this is a very good map of Auschwitz. You can see the guard tower, the fence, the buildings, the forest in the back, everything. So we were taken to the second barrack from the corner, a wooden modular horse barn, and here is a sample of it. No windows. The windows were on the elevated part of the roof. Inside, the barrack was filthy and crude, divided in two by a brick bench, then a walkway on the east side of the brick bench, and then the three-story wooden bunk beds. Miriam and I were given a bunk bed on the bottom. It was covered with a thin straw mattress and a filthy blanket. Well, we have not slept in 4 days. We thought it would be nice to be able to stretch out and sleep. I understand today that human beings cannot function after such a horrendous day. So I kept tossing and turning, and as I was tossing and turning, I noticed something big and dark moving on the floor. I began counting them. When I got to 5, I jumped up screaming, "Mice, mice!" A girl from the top bunk bed said, "Silly kid, these are not mice, these are rats. And you better get used to them because they are everywhere." And as I looked around, I could see them scampering from under the bunk bed. So now we couldn't go back to our bunk bed because they were right under our nose. We went to the latrine. As I entered the place, there on the filthy latrine floor were the scattered corpses of 3 children. I have never seen anybody dead before, and it hit me very hard, realizing that in this place, children were dying. So I made a silent pledge that I will do anything and everything within my power to make sure that Miriam and I shall not end up on that filthy latrine floor, that we will actually survive and walk out of this camp alive. In our barrack, we were little girls between the ages of 2 and 16. At night, we would huddle in our filthy bunk beds, crawling with lice and rats. We were starved for food. We were starved for human kindness. And we were starved for the love of the mothers and fathers we once had. We had no rights, but somehow we had a fierce determination to live one more day, survive one more experiment. I was used in 2 types of experiments. The day would begin at 5 a.m. with the shrieking sound of a whistle that would wake us up. We would help some of the younger children, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, to lace up their shoes. We did not have to help anybody to dress up because we never took our clothes off. All we really had were on the clothes on our back and our lives. By 6 a.m., we were outside for roll call, summer, winter, rain or shine, and by the time the winter of 1944-45 rolled around, my dress was filled with holes and so were my shoes. We did not get any winter clothes. How we survived it, I still don't understand it. After roll call, we would go back to the barrack for Dr. Mengele's daily inspection, and he would come in every day except Sunday, and that is the way we knew it was Sunday. Then Mengele, after he counted us, he would leave, and we would get breakfast. Breakfast at Auschwitz was nothing more but a brownish, bitter, lukewarm cup of liquid cold coffee. 0 calories. After breakfast, we would be taken for experiments. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we would be taken to Auschwitz I, placed naked in a barrack, about 50 sets of twins, and measured for 8 hours, just about every part of my body. They could spend 3 hours on one arm. These were very, very minute details. These experiments were not dangerous, but they were unbelievably demeaning. And even in Auschwitz, I could not cope with the fact that it made me feel like I was a nobody and nothing. The only way I could cope with it is by blocking it out of my mind, and that began probably after the third or fourth visit to that lab. On alternate days, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, we would be taken to another lab that I call the blood lab, because they would tie both of my arms to restrict the blood flow, take a lot of blood from my left arm, at the same time give me a minimum of 5 injections into my right arm with 5 needles. The content of those injections we didn't know then, nor do I know today. The rumor was that they were germs, diseases, and drugs, and that is probably correct. After one of those injections, I became very ill with a very high fever. I was trembling as the late July sun was burning my skin. My arms and legs were swollen and very painful, and I was covered with red dots. Next visit to the blood lab, instead of tying my arms, they measured my fever, and I knew I was in trouble. I was immediately taken to the hospital. The hospital was just like one of these barracks, but the bunk beds were filled with people who all they could do is scream. They couldn't even move much. Next morning, Dr. Mengele came in with 4 doctors. He never examined me. He looked at my fever chart, and then he declared, laughing sarcastically, he said, "Too bad. She's so young, but she has only 2 weeks to live." I knew he was right, but I refused to die. And I made a second silent pledge that I will prove Dr. Mengele wrong, I will survive and be reunited with my twin sister Miriam. For the following 2 weeks, I have only one clear memory. I remember crawling on the barrack floor because I no longer could walk. And I was crawling to reach the other end of the barrack, where I found out there was a faucet with water. This barrack was not even allocated water. People were brought there to die. And as I was crawling, I would fade in and out of consciousness. And even in a semi-state of mind, I kept telling myself, I must survive. I must survive. After 2 weeks, my fever broke. I immediately felt a lot better and a lot stronger. It took me another 3 weeks before the fever chart showed normal. And amazingly, I was released and reunited with the other twins and my twin sister Miriam. Dying in Auschwitz was very easy. I remember, unfortunately, walking over dead bodies. You could not concentrate. If you concentrated, oh, I just walked over a dead body, you could not concentrate on living. So I always concentrated on how to survive. I believe that one needed 2 things in order to survive Auschwitz. First of all, guardian angel, luck, or whatever you want to call it. If you did not have that, you were done. Second, you had to have an unbelievable will to live. If you didn't have both, you would not survive Auschwitz. When I got back to the barrack, Miriam was sitting on her bed, looking into space aimlessly. That was very dangerous. I asked her, what have they done to you? She said, I cannot talk about it, I will not talk about it. And Miriam and I never talked about Auschwitz until 1985, 40 years after liberation. That's a very long time. I tried to understand that, and I came to the conclusion that if children have to fight for their life, they cannot go back to the experience until they feel physically safe, and second, until they feel emotionally strong enough to cope with the memory. And for us, that didn't happen until 1985. I asked Miriam, do you remember when I was taken to the hospital? She said, yes. I said, good. What happened to you while I was in the hospital? She said, well, for the first 2 weeks,